Well, hello model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Rao, and this week I'm going to feature one of my all-time favorite cars. This is definitely on the top of my list, the 70 Challenger. That's a car I love, just absolutely adore. I had some friends that have had a couple of them. None of the real desirable or very powerful ones, but I've been around a few of them and always loved these and wanted to buy one years ago. And even shopped for one or two, and there was one that was real serious about buying, but I let it get away. And that one I regret letting it go, but it was a big project and it was at an awesome price, but I didn't have a place to store it. And the guy who had it and was willing to sell it, we're still good friends today, even though I ended up helping him sell the car to somebody else, and kind of wish that I had bought it and kept it for myself, even though it would probably be still sitting in the backyard untouched, as you know, paying for something like that and playing with it, they get kind of expensive. You can't have too many project cars, right? You know, much like model cars. But anyway, 70 Challenger. This is just first year for the Challenger from Dodge. It was an e-body platform, an all brand new platform, and shared a lot of components with the Plymouth Barracuda. But surprisingly, there's a lot of items that are not interchangeable between the two cars. I'll get into that a little bit. One of the facts that I like about these cars is that every engine that Mopar offered was available in this car. Not in all packages, but in this car. So that just blows me away that from the 6-cylinder all the way up to the Hemi was available in the Challenger. Some were limited to certain packages, but even the 340, you get into the 6-cylinder, the 318s, the 340, the 346 pack, which that was only in the Challenger TA, 1 year only, but that engine was available in it. The 383, the 440, 446 pack, and the Hemi, all available in this car. Interestingly, the 340 was not initially offered in this car. Plymouth announced it that was going to be available in their CUDA. So the Challenger RT was initially available with only the 383, the 440 U-Code 4-barrel, 446 pack V-Code, and the 426 Hemi. That was the initial availability of the RTs, but the 340 became available in the Challenger later on in the model year. Not talking about the 6-pack that was only available in the TA, but the regular 295 horse 340 or 275 horse. It was the A66 package. But love these cars. Now the convertibles are very rare. The convertible was only offered for 1970 and 71 when it comes to Challengers and technically CUDAs as well. But for 1970 was the only year you can get a Challenger RT convertible. The RT was dropped for 71, so you could not get a Challenger RT convertible for 71. But for 1970 you could. And the convertible production, there were just under 4,000 convertibles made. Only a quarter of those were actually RTs. So you could get a Challenger convertible with a 6-cylinder. Those are very rare. There's roughly 300 and something of those made according to the production numbers that I have seen or were kept track of. The RT package cars, there was about 970 of those produced. And like I said, those were available with the 383, 440, the 446 pack, and then the Hemi initially, and then later on the 340. Don't remember the 340 production numbers, but they're really rare as well. The Hemi Challenger convertibles, there were 9 of those made, automatic or stick. And that particular car, I haven't built one of those. I'd love to build it, but all 9 of them did not come with the shaker. The shaker was available on the Challenger. Unlike the Hemi CUDA. The Hemi CUDA came standard with the shaker, but on the Challenger the shaker was an option on the Hemi cars, and basically all of them. But I thought that was interesting that all 9 factory Hemi Challenger convertibles did not have the shaker. They were not ordered with them, so it's kind of funny. 446 packs, which is what this one represents, there were 99 of those made, and a good chunk of those were actually 4-speeds, believe it or not. I remember reading somewhere that there was like 38 automatics and the rest were manuals. So what does that leave? 62, 61 4-speed V-Code convertibles. So that's pretty cool. That's how I would order it. And I think, you know, personally, I would really enjoy the 446 pack. But the Hemi's a top dog, but the 446 pack was a much more drivable car that I understand as far as streetable compared to the Hemi. But the Hemi was calmed down a little bit because they started putting the hydraulic lifters in it, so they didn't require as much valve train adjustment. But part of the compromise there was they didn't quite rev as high as the solid lifter Hemis from earlier years. The rating didn't change. There was still 425 horse ratings. You know, these are just, it's just a car that I really enjoy. Oh, and when it comes to the interchangeability of stuff, this thing is all different body. There is not a piece of sheet metal that's interchangeable between the Challenger and the Barracuda, except for maybe the door panel, the door handle. The car itself, the actual sheet metal is all unique. I believe even the roof skin is a little bit different, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I just remember reading that it's completely different. I think it's the wheelbase that changed that too, because 90%, just about all the drivetrain and suspension are interchangeable between the Barracuda and the Challenger. But the Challenger rides on a wheelbase that's 1 or 2 inches longer than the Barracuda. So while all the suspension and everything interchange, the drive shafts do not, because of the different lengths. But then, you know, you have to make sure if you're going to get a drive shaft, it's got to have the same rear end and the same tranny, because a 4-speed and an automatic have different drive shafts. But anyway, that's just kind of the details that I kind of like. But when it comes to this build, this is an older build of mine, really older build of mine. So it's definitely 20-25 years old. It's definitely a high school build. Again, one of the first airbrushed ones. I remember this is Tester's Rose Metallic. I think I still have a jar or two of this paint, but I airbrushed this on long ago. Definitely not a factory color. I didn't build this exactly factory correct, mainly because I didn't know a lot of the stuff at the time, and I built it the way I wanted to and enjoyed it. Like this has the TA spoiler, which there's some debate on that, but it really wasn't available on the Challenger other than the TA, but some of them did get on there. I do know there's some that were dealer installed, but you know, there may have been a few that have had that put on. I know the TA hood made it onto a few of the Challenger RTs because of the hood shortage, the shaker hood shortage, and they ended up putting some of those on some of those cars instead. But that's just more of the trivia. But this one, I've resisted the urge to rebuild it. You know, it's a really nice build of mine from way back then. There's some things I'd like to do about it, and I've got a ton of these AMT Challenger kits. There's a lot of differences between some of them. So earlier versions have some differences in later versions. AMT kept updating and changing and tweaking some things here and there. But one of the things I just can't stand is that very open air grabber with no grills. The shaker scoop, I'm sorry. That it should have some grills in there, but it never really did. And something happened to this one, because I originally had this painted the same color as the body, which is really not correct. And something happened to it. I don't remember if it popped off or broke, or or scratched it or something. But it ended up coming off, and I repainted this flat black and then put the Fred Katie decals on there that have the 446 pack, or those are Keith Marks. I don't really remember. They might be Keith Marks, but that's the only thing I updated. This is all pretty much some silver paint. The silver paint around the windshield frame. A lot of dust in here. You can tell the dash is actually brush painted, and then detailed the engine, but built it right out of the box. Didn't really do anything much there. And this really is a fairly nice kit, although most of the boxes show a hard top. I'll put some of the box arts in here, as most of them are shown as a hard top, but all of them have the convertible body in it. Here's the underside that I did back then, and you can see it didn't black out in here as much, so I do that now, or I get paint in there. Try not to have the white plastic showing. But this is an older build, so it represents some of the things I did back then. The entire chassis is brush painted, from the exhaust, everything. It's all brush painted, and it's just you know what I was doing back then. And then the decals had some issues right here, and I think I tried to make them better. But they're a bit muddy decals. You can almost not even make out the RT emblem right there. And then the silver painted door handles. And then the smudge in the paint I got right here. Couldn't tell you what that was. I'm sure that was glue that was on my hand. Probably trying to get that mirror to glue on with regular glue. But this is a really old build that I've had a long time, and there's just some more inaccuracies when it comes to the dash. But this one has the rally dash in it. Some of them don't, some do. There's actually a couple of different dashes depending on when the AMT kit was issued. But I'd love to fix the grills on here. There's just a lot of things I'd like to do, but really like this kit. And this one I've left it alone, other than repainting the shaker. So I'll show some of those older pictures. It's been 20 something years easily since I've done anything to it. It's probably a little less than 20 when I did this, but the rest of the kit I've done. These hood pins aren't in the right spot. They're really nice molded hood pins, but they're not in the right spot. They actually should be in the depression right next to it on the other side of that body line as far as factory hood pins go. But for all we know, the car that they were using for their research had hood pins added to it and just put in the wrong spot. But still, one of my favorite cars, one of the ones I've had in my collection a very long time. And I'll point out, this is the taillights and this backup panel are not painted correctly. This is the actual backup light, so that should be white, and that just should be red. It's just a reflector in there. The 71, they had them moved to there, so I kind of painted them like the 71 taillights, but it's not really correct. It's a 70. But just pointing out some of the things I did back then, and then blacked out the exhaust pipes a little bit to make them appear that they're open, but they're not. But it's one that someday I'll build another one of these. I don't know why I haven't done another Challenger convertible. I've been wanting to do a Hemi swap in one of these, to do one of the Hemi Challenger convertibles. And whether or not I'm going to do a shaker on it or not, because none of the original 9 cars had the shaker, which I mentioned earlier. But anyway, I just wanted to show you one of my really old builds that's survived all this time, and I haven't modified it or changed it, and I don't plan to after all this time. And since I have so many of these kits, and I'll probably do a kit review of the different ones and some of the changes and parts added and modified or tweaked on these, because I've had so many of them and found out many of them have different parts in them or updates and revisions. Most notably, different wheels, bumper's been changed, the dash has been changed, and of course some of them have the regular hood and not the shaker hood in it. But anyway, that will be enough for this one. So thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and all your comments. I really appreciate it. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday.